Welcome to the Skeptic Zone, the podcast from Australia for science and reason.
Yes, it's the Skeptic Zone podcast, episode number 787 for the 5th of November 2023. Richard Saunders coming to you this week from Oakland, California. Coming up on this week's episode, more from SciCon 2023 in Las Vegas. Just the other week, I catch up with Melanie Trecek-King and Ross Blocher. Now, Melanie will be appearing at Skepticon in Melbourne in just a few weeks' time. Find out what she'll be talking about. And, of course, it's always great to catch up with Ross Blocher from Oh No, Ross and Carrie podcast. A couple of interviews to kick off this week's episode of the Skeptic Zone. Following that, it's Adrienne Hill, who I saw in Las Vegas. Great to see Adrienne. Thank you for the wonderful Skeptic Zone tie, by the way, Adrienne. I wore that, as you know. Looks fantastic. Yes, Adrienne will be here with the Australian Skeptics Newsletter. Then it's back to Sydney for Sydney Skeptics in the Pub. And Maynard was there just the other night, and he was asking pubgoers what they think about Halloween. Because in Australia, Halloween really wasn't a thing until maybe 20 years ago, something like that. And over the last couple of decades, it's grown and grown, and now we have lots of children running around the suburbs trick-or-treating. But this simply wasn't a thing not that long ago, so some Australians really resent it, believe it or not. Then to round off the show in the Trove segment, we look at natural healing in the pages of Australian newspapers going back many decades. A big shout out to all my friends back in Australia getting ready for the big convention, Skepticon, and hopefully those people aren't working too hard. It's a big business, it's a lot of work to put on a convention. So if you've managed to get a few days off, a few days away, I'm thinking about you. Stay tuned at the end of the episode for more announcements from me, but now it's time for me to run out the door, run down the street, run into a store, get a nice bagel and some toast. While I'm doing that, I hope you enjoy the Skeptic Zone. Sitting down with Melanie Trecek-King. Hello, good to meet you.
Hello, good to meet you.
You were a guest on my show within the last 6 months, year?
Yeah, I think so.
Something like that.
Yeah, not very long ago.
And for those people who are just catching up with you, thinking is power, isn't it?
I mean, I like to say so. The idea is there's too much to know, and we have access to basically all the world's information in our pockets. So can we find good information and think about it to make better decisions?
And how do you go about helping people to make better decisions?
So I focus on critical thinking, information literacy, and science literacy. So basic epistemology, how we come to our beliefs, thinking about the emotions and biases that drive our reasoning, being skeptical of our beliefs and the claims that we hear, and being able to find good information and understanding what makes scientific information reliable, and then being able to find it and use it as well.
And how is that, how do you find that the outreach is going? I mean, are people responsive? Do they get it?
I mean, I think so. I've built the curriculum based on my students, so they've been my lab rats, so to speak. And I took the information, the curriculum that I was teaching my students, and I put it online on the website Thinking is Power, and thought, well, I wonder if other people might be interested in this. And so have social media accounts, and yeah, people visit them, and growing. I've only been at it for a couple of years.
Right.
But I like, so I use colorful graphics.
You do. I saw your presentation here. You do use colorful graphics. Yes.
Well, there's no reason critical thinking needs to be stuffy.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
He says wearing a tie and a shirt. Somebody said to me, I was just walking here to interview you, and somebody passed me in the hall and said, "Why are you all dressed up?" And I said, "I don't know. Why is everybody else dressed like slobs?"
Yeah. But I see your little bent spoon tie clip.
How about that? A gift from a very good friend of mine, Sue Urachi in Sydney, who does jewellery and stuff. Isn't it great? A bent tie clip.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
Now, talking about your presentation, which was great and very well received, and you mentioned the fact that you use colourful graphics. Is that the sort of thing people can expect in Melbourne at Skepticon?
Yeah, those efforts die hard. Again, I've learned to communicate. So my background is community college students, and these are gen ed students, and they've taught me a lot about what people know and what they need to know and how to communicate them. And so, the brand at this point is just, if you can say it with humor, do. If you can say it with flashy colors, I always wear black, but yes, everything is colorful and, just fun.
Just fun.
Just fun.
So when people meet you in Melbourne, this is what they can expect.
Yeah,
a bit of color, a bit of fun.
Yeah, I am who I am, so it's just what I do.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw my presentation.
I did indeed, yes.
The fart jokes help.
Well, there you go. That sums it up, doesn't it?
We can't end on fart jokes, can we? Or maybe we can.
That got a great laugh from the audience, of course.
Yeah.
Of course. But not only will you be at Skepticon, and that's the 2nd to the 3rd of December in Melbourne. Mm-hmm. Get your tickets now. But you're also going to be visiting Sydney, I think.
I am. Sydney and Benalla. Is that a place? Does that name sound familiar? Benalla, I think. I'm also giving a talk at the University of Melbourne on the 4th. And so, we're going to spend most of December down there. And I hear it's sunny and warm in Australia that time of year.
Well, we once had a skeptical convention in Melbourne in late November, about 12 years ago, 10 years ago. And it was a heat wave. And James Randi was there, and he was speaking at a high school. And just after Randy's talk, they had to shut the high school down because of the extreme heat. So be prepared.
Oh, my. Well, we have friends in Melbourne. We're going to, they tell us they do Christmas on the beach with seafood and stuff.
Yeah, that's a thing.
As an American with the white Christmas thing, I'm really looking forward to the different perspective.
Well, you'll find it funny because by that time of the year, all the Christmas decorations will be up and you see Santa Clauses wandering around in the stifling heat. But that's just what happens.
Is Santa wearing like a Speedo or?
Sometimes, but normally it's the full kit. It's normally the full suit with the big beard and everything, yeah?
Okay, but on the beach?
Everywhere.
Everywhere.
Santa's worked very hard in Australia.
That's brilliant.
So where can people go to find out more about what you're doing? Before they meet you in person, of course.
Yes, of course. Please come. I'm so excited about being there. So my website is thinkingispower.com, and I'm on Facebook and Instagram, TikTok, X, and YouTube at Thinking Powers.
Thinking Powers. Okay.
At Thinking Powers,
At
yes.
Thinking Powers, right. I'll link to those in this week's show note. Melanie, Trecek-King, what a delight to meet you at last.
It's so much fun to meet you. Thank you so much for this.
We're here at the gardens of the Flamingo Hotel here in Las Vegas. Oh no.
Oh no.
Oh no. I feel like we should hear the music. Oh, here it is.
Which is written by Brian Keith Dalton of Mr. Deity fame. And the original lyrics, he tells us, were for his dog, Cookie. So the original lyrics are, cookie doodle, you're my cookie doodle. And it goes on like that.
He recorded it too?
Yeah. He played it both on piano and guitar for us.
Wow.
Yeah.
How about that? So here's a kick. The first time I interviewed you was right here in Las Vegas.
That's right.
At the South Point Casino, I think.
You were the first to ever recognize myself and Carrie from a journalistic standpoint.
I know talent when I see it.
You spotted us. You knew the potential that we had.
But all your adventures over the last 10, 12 years?
Yeah, 12 years now. We started in 2011.
Wow.
Yep. So...
So you must be...
It takes one to know one.
It does.
A fellow esteemed journalist and podcaster such as yourself.
But you must be a doctor in just about every subject under the sun by now, right? Or Reverend Doctor or something.
Yeah, well, I always say with Ono, Ross, and Carrie and our investigations, we have so much spiritual insurance. If whoever turns out to be right, we've probably been baptized with them or carry an amulet from them. So I like to think that, if you extend Pascal's wager, that simple, game theory rectangle or a square that usually gets painted by Christians, they'll say, well, either there is a God and there isn't, and either you believe in him or you don't, and they'll try to paint out the consequences accordingly.
Yeah.
If you extend that out to include all the other possible beliefs, I like to think we have more of those boxes checked.
No matter where you end up,
yeah,
you can say, I know all about this. Right?
I'm still technically a Mormon and on their rosters. I'm still, well, actually, I'm not still technically a Scientologist. They got rid of me, but a member of many groups, so yes.
So talk me through a typical Ono, Ross and Carrie. I mean, how do you get the ideas? How do you plan your approach and recording?
So, well, we do have a very long spreadsheet that we've shared for years, or a document, a Google Doc, where we've just collected ideas because we get at least like 5 ideas a day from listeners. Like, oh, I just saw this ad for this thing, or this conference is happening nearby me. You should totally come check this out. So sometimes those really help because it'll be something that is in our area that we didn't know about, or something that just sounds super interesting and timely. Maybe it's a psychic we've been looking at for a long time and they have a show coming up that we didn't know about. Or maybe it's a Bigfoot conference that's happening for 3 days or something like that. But also, we ourselves are on a ton of mailing lists from all of these groups that we join and spiritualists that we've looked into. So we'll see something coming up. Maybe we'll put it on the calendar. Maybe we'll just like hop in the car and go.
Yeah.
Or sometimes we'll just visit the local storefront psychic or, the reflexologist down the street.
Do you go prepared with recording gear, or do you normally make notes and talk about it later?
A bit of both.
Yeah.
It's the best case scenario where we can record. And, the way it works out, at least in the state of California, is that if there's an expectation of public atmosphere, like right now we're in Nevada and we're outside, any conversation held out here would be considered a public. Yeah. So if it's that kind of situation, yes, we'll definitely be recording if we can. And then also, if we can take contemporaneous notes, fantastic. However, those notes, which are so helpful when you can see additional things and note them, like how many people are in the room, what the person's wearing. You can't capture that in a recording. And of course, we'll take photos as well.
Yeah.
But when they ask you all to like close your eyes and hold hands and chant together for 30 minutes, you can't be writing notes during that time. So it is really helpful if you can record.
A lot of your show is your reminiscences, you going over. You said this happened and this happened and this happened.
Right, and I think one thing that's helpful is just that Carrie and I are just, we have different things that we focus on in a situation. So she'll report on some of like these interpersonal interactions and maybe the expression on the face of the presenter, whereas I'll be remembering like what they were wearing or how many people were in the room. So we can kind of combine those observations and then maybe even gently correct each other on certain facts when we're like, oh, actually, it was blah, 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 blah. And I think that's kind of part of the narrative is that we recognize that memories aren't great and we can talk about what we do remember with some confidence and what we don't.
I really appreciate you guys because I often ask other podcasts to send me promotions.
Yeah.
Because, I like to promote other podcasts. One floats, we all float, right?
Yes.
And I like the fact that you're always coming up with these really creative ones, like the Noah's Ark. Carrie turns up at Noah's Ark and you're there. And
I can't tell you how much I appreciate that you're always willing to play our promotions. So you're always the first one I think of, like, I got to send this new one to Richard. Yeah, well, Carrie's really good with like the improv thinking. She, that's part of her background. And so is her husband, Drew. So he often comes up with some of these great ideas for like, hey, why don't you all like get on the ark together and like Noah turns you away? Or like, let's do a different version where you are Noah and, you're letting on these crazy podcasters. So, or sometimes it's like a send up of the Exorcist trailer or what have you. So, it's fun to play with us.
I'm Carrie. I'm a psychic.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And you start to speak, and she's copying what you're saying.
Yeah. She's like speaking ahead of me and with me and getting everything wrong. Yeah, it's hilarious. But that is a good point, though. Yeah. Like, one thing I think that we can contribute with our investigations is that they are firsthand. Yeah. But also, I think another distinguishing element of our show is that it is kind of a comedy podcast.
It is.
While it's also about serious matters that affect people's lives and science literacy, but we can have fun with it, and always hopefully at the expense of well-meaning people.
Still at Maximum Fun?
We are still at Maximum Fun. Yeah, they've been a great home for us. And they went through a recent change where they became a co-op. So now the company, rather than being sold to some conglomerate, is owned by the employees, which is fantastic. So, we kind of know where the money's going, and we know the people, and they're good people.
So if people want to check you out, they should go to MaximumFun.org.
That's correct, yeah.
I listen to the promotions.
Ah, wonderful. Yeah, thank you so much, Richard.
Thanks, Ross.
Okay, zebras, orangutans. Oh,
yes, sorry. Hi.
I'm not used to the animals talking. Who are you?
Yes, my name's Carrie Poppy. I co-host a podcast called Owner Ross and Carrie. This is my co-host Ross right here.
Okay.
We investigate spirituality, claims of the paranormal, and we were wondering if we could get on the Ark.
You did come 2 by 2. I appreciate that. Though most of the things I'm letting on the Ark don't talk.
I'm going to be talking all up on this boat. Do you mind boat?
I prefer Ark or barge.
Okay, I'm not listening, but if you let me on, then I will make my really good podcast on your boat.
Can you at least help clean up all the poop?
I guess I don't see why not.
Well, I'll check out the podcast. Where do I find it?
It's on MaximumFun.org.
Hello everyone, this is Adrienne Hill, back to SkeptiCamp Studios from SciCon in Las Vegas, and I'm here to read the highlights from the Australian Skeptics Newsletter. And I had people questioning me at the conference about what the significance of SkeptiCamp was. To find out, listen back to episode 763 of the Skeptic Zone. This is newsletter number 185. You can subscribe to this newsletter and get it delivered to your inbox every other week, complete with links to all the stories. Just visit www.skeptics.com.au. But now, let's see what Tim Mendham has for us this week. Hi all, says Tim. A special Halloween edition? Nah. Just enjoy the wonders of the real world and the weird ones of the wacky world as well. And there's a lot of it this time. Pretty fair need, eh? And that was for the Canucks in the audience. Read on, Tim. Okay, Tim, I'll do just that. Last chance to nominate a spoon candidate. Nominations for the Bent Spoon will close soon to give the various state groups time to make their deliberations. So if you have a likely candidate for the perpetrator of the most preposterous piece of paranormal or pseudoscientific piffle of the year, you should do so now via the website or by emailing to editor@skeptics.com.au. The winner will be announced at the Skepticon dinner on December 2nd, along with the more positive awards of Skeptic of the Year, the Thornet Award for the promotion of reason, and the Wallaby Award for media critical thinking. Update: Skepticon 2023, which is December 2nd through 3rd. Speakers list. The speaker lineup for Skepticon is an impressive offering, both the speakers themselves and the topics. You should be there, whether in person to meet fellow skeptics and get something signed, or at least online when you can watch it all in your pajamas, with or without the signatures. So the speakers include Tony Pittman, who's going to be the MC and host of Skepticon, and he's an investigator of academic misconduct and AI bots. Nathan Eggins, musician, conspiracy of one, dinner entertainer, and joint MC. Susan Gerbic, skeptical activist, Wikipediatrician, psychic buster, and perennial fun. Melanie Trecek-King, a critical thinker and an education and science communicator. Adam Ford, a futurist on the ethical implications of AI. Annie McCubbin, corporate trainer, author, and protector against scams and bad decision-making. Gary Backer, clinical psychologist on sex, gender, and identity, the politics, and the science. Gideon Maivia Katz, Liam Mannix, and Melissa Davey, health nerd meets skeptics, award-winning journalists on Science in the Media panel. John Cook, researcher into misinformation, especially climate change deniers and cranky uncles. Catherine Shade, evaluating claims skeptically. Lyle Allen, political science on conspiracy theorist Karen Brewer's campaign against Freemasons and politicians, and most other people. Mal Vickers, Skeptic of the Year 2019, problems with regulators. Stephen Bavaro, researcher, humanist, skeptic, and student of pseudoarchaeology. Sue Irachi, emergency medicine specialist on what leads conventionally trained doctors to turn to pseudoscience. Timothy Grant, a consultant on sustainability metrics, looks at the demonization of plastics. Zafir Ivanov, Bayesian reasoning and thinking in ratios. Skepticon will be held on December 2nd through 3rd at the Ian Potter Auditorium in the Kenneth Meyer Building, University of Melbourne, Parkville. Tickets cover 1- and 2-day bookings, full price and concession, as well as the dinner itself. Tickets for online viewing are also available. Get your in-person or online tickets now at www.skepticon.org.au. Vaccine conspiracy after actor's death. The death of Friends star Matthew Perry has led mega influencers to push conspiracy theories without providing evidence, no surprise there, that the COVID-19 vaccine was possibly to blame for his passing. Candace Taylor, a 2022 Georgia Republican gubernatorial primary candidate, made the incisive assessment, quote, correlation doesn't lie, end quote. Interesting. RMIT cancels TCM courses. RMIT will stop taking new undergraduate students in Chinese medicine next year. Students and practitioners have called on the university to reverse its decision. UFO skeptic on prominent believers. This is a link to a 4-minute video from Skeptoid host Brian Dunning that takes aim at leading UFO promoters who are, quote, driven by media attention, not science, end quote. Brian's documentary, the UFO movie They Don't Want You to See, was previewed at SciCon last weekend, and according to our host, was a great success with standing room only. It was a packed room. Cloud seeding debate. Does cloud seeding actually work? This article looks at advocates, skeptics, and the right chemical mix. CSIRO used to work on it, with little reliable results, but useful info. What is skepticism? A philosophical approach. The History of Skepticism, outlining 2 popular varieties and then looks at reasons why someone might be a skeptic. The article looks longer than it really is. There's lots of pictures, including a nice one of a chimpanzee brain. Bad smell? Gotta be demons. Quote, "The Conjuring's Warren couple and other movie-based psychic investigators mocked by paranormal expert," end quote. This short video could easily go down in the weird section below, especially as it is narrated by a paranormalist and ghost hunter. But it has enough amusing critical elements to warrant its inclusion up here. But it's a plug for the guy's new book. We're working on the December issue of The Skeptic, with a look at some famous or infamous UFO and haunting claims. Meanwhile, the September 2023 issue of The Skeptic is out, looking at the risks, the critics, and the hoaxes associated with the golden age of parapsychology, the World Health Organization's promotion of alt-med, and the rehabilitation of Uri Geller. If you haven't subscribed yet, now is the time to do so. You can sign up for a hard copy or digital edition, or both. The digital is offered free to those who take up the hard copy version. Contact the editor if you're not sure if your existing subscription needs renewing. Learn more about our magazine and subscribe now. Items of interest. Do creationists believe in hyper-evolution? This is a video from the Creationist Answers in Genesis site and deals with the vexed issue of fitting all of those animals on Noah's Ark and the subsequent need for rapid-fire interspecies evolution. This site has no qualms. Quote, "We don't believe in hyperevolution, and the biblical timescale actually explains exactly what we see in the world," end quote. Psychic predicts victory for Springboks. This is about the Rugby World Cup finals outcome. Not a psychic animal in this case, but a real person got the real result and a real last-minute win in a 2-horse race, but got the wrong margins. Presumably, there were lots of psychics who predicted a Kiwi win, but oh well, you can't have every psychic prediction come true. As we found out in the Great Australian Psychic Prediction Project. New Jerseyites believe the Jersey Devil is real. A recent poll by Fairleigh Dickinson University found that 16% of New Jersey residents, which is approximately 1.5 million people, entertain the possibility of the Jersey Devil being real. The same survey revealed higher levels of belief in other paranormal phenomena, such as ghosts and astrology, but, quote, little credence given to fictional creatures like the Flukeman of Newark, end quote. Never heard of the fictional Flukeman, but does that mean the Jersey Devil isn't fictional? Silliest story of the week. Is this proof of time travel? Well, the answer is no, but forget the claim. This is how to make a short story look longer. Just repeat the same paragraph 3 times, plus add 1 set of bullet points that gives the same information. I'm thinking maybe this is AI at work. Who knows? Even sillier story of the week. Oh my, how could it be sillier? Psychic lip print reading. Okay, maybe it is sillier. What does your kiss mark say about you? And what happens to you if you have lip implants? Does that change your character? I see a duck. It could be a funny party game, but this overly long article takes it all seriously. Well, that's the newsletter. Now I think I will go upstairs and have a long nap on the Chesterfield. And you may be saying to yourself that a Chesterfield is not unique to Canada. And you're partly correct. According to Wiktionary.com, a Chesterfield is, quote, a couch, sofa, or love seat with padded arms and back the same height, often curved outward at the top, end quote. Whereas in Canada, a Chesterfield is just any old couch or sofa. Until next time, this is Adrienne Hill.
You've probably heard the saying, knowledge is power. While that's true, there's just too much to know. Plus, we carry access to nearly all of humanity's knowledge in our pockets. Unfortunately, there's also a lot of misinformation out there. Conspiracy theories, propaganda, pseudoscience, science denial, all of which are effective because they appeal to our biases and emotions. As Richard Feynman reminded us, no one can fool us like we can. Protecting yourself from misinformation requires better thinking. When you need reliable information, do you know where to find it and how to use it to make wise decisions? And importantly, are you aware of the thinking errors that might cause you to fall for misleading information? The bottom line is knowledge is not enough. Thinking is power. I'm science educator and communicator Melanie Trecek-King. Please visit thinkingispower.com to learn more about critical thinking, information literacy, and science literacy skills. Educators can find useful and engaging course materials and assignments for their students. And for a daily-ish dose of better thinking, follow Thinking is Power on X, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube.
Here's Maynard's spooky action at a distance.
Oh, here we are at Sydney Skeptics in the pub for November 2023. People rushing, hushing, flushing, moving through the park, watching in the dark, hiding when they should, living on a dream, and other song titles. But tonight we've got Stephen Bavaro, who's going to be talking about Atlantis, the myths of Atlantis. And I'm keen on that one because I want to know about Lemuria, I want to know about all those places that just never were. He'll be talking about that. And I'm going to be asking a few people about... as far as Australia goes, Halloween's never been a big thing, but it's certainly been a pretty big thing here since about the 2000s. So is it a bit of American cultural imperialism? Well, we'll just find out by asking a few people in between a few drinks. And I'll tell you, a lot of people have been coming up to me, recognising me on the Skeptic Zone, and just saying, "Are you Richard Saunders?" And I've said, "Yes, I am. Get me a drink." So I think you owe a lot of people money when you get back, Richard. So get to it. Well, I'm here with Stephen Bavaro. How are you this evening at Skeptics in the Pub?
Well, I'm very happy. I mean, I like attending when I can Skeptics in the pub.
Well, Stephen, are you a bit nervous about confronting an audience of skeptics?
Slightly nervous, but no more nervous than any other public speaking thing. If anything, when I spoke at Skepticon last year, I found everyone was very encouraging, and I found that they're on my side. And everything I've done since then, whether it's been appearing on this podcast or other things, no one's been too critical. Like, they've just given positive feedback. So, no, I'm not too nervous. I'm just nervous in the same way I'd be if I was giving a talk in any public speaking events in any other situation.
Well, you're going to be at Skepticon in Melbourne in December. When you played there, and I say played because I'm a musician, think of that way, but when you played there last year, what was the Q&A session afterwards with any people that were going, "Hey, mate," and it was, what were they like? Were they respectful, or were they, "I want to nitpick you on something"?
One question asked by someone there, and one question asked by someone online, and they were both like very encouraging, and they were genuinely interested in my topic. They asked a couple of questions, and there was just a funny moment because I actually wore my Skeptic with Brian Dunning t-shirt, and he actually made a comment online. Kevin, the convener, read it out. Apparently, Brian just said, "Oh, nice shirt," or words to that effect. So no, all the feedback I got during that and afterwards, even now, all this time later, has been very encouraging.
Thank you, Stephen. Look, I'm here with Tim. Tim is here, of course. You're letting people know about the magazine. And what's in this month's?
This month's coming up, the December issue. Your next issue is going to have a lot about UFOs, which is one of your favourite topics.
Big topic. Although the controversial one here, and one that probably even protrudes far into the skeptical world, is that you don't think Pan's people or Legs & Co. were good dancers.
No, I think they're horrible, actually. Yeah.
Come on, what about Ruby Flipper? They were between... Ruby Flipper was the group between Pan's people and before Legs & Co.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Pants people were the ones on top of the pops.
Well, Legs & Co. was as well, as was Ruby Flipper. They were all
Who
on
were the
that.
ones on what's his name's program?
Kenny Everett's video show.
Hot Gossip.
Hot Gossip.
They were okay.
Now, hang on a minute. They
were
didn't.
sexy.
They didn't
They were
do.
sexy.
They would do 3 moves and pose, cut.
Yeah.
So I don't think they were as good at dancers.
Girls in skimpy outfits, that's all you need, right?
Right, yeah. Well, look, see, there's your skeptical topic right there, which leads us to you in a skimpy outfit at Halloween. Right. Is Halloween a bit of an American import into this country? Because when I was a kid, Halloween was nothing.
Exactly.
And when you were a kid, this nation hadn't been founded.
That's exactly right. And the Walpurgis night was real. We actually had demons wandering the streets, etc. So now we've got little kids, and not so little kids. I noticed actually a lot of older teenagers walking around trying to get their loot.
Well, yeah, you can see, because when you're sort of 13, when you're a teenager, you can kind of still get the early stuff and dress like you shouldn't.
Like you shouldn't, yeah. In the street, especially
Exactly.
a dark suburban street, yes.
Exactly.
Is it an American import? I think as it is now, seriously, do you want me to be serious or flippant?
Yeah.
I can be flippant.
No,
Do you want,
look-
I can do flip.
Look, give us both your routines.
Okay. It's actually Icelandic, right? And all the Icelandic community in Sydney all gathered together and they put on their normal Sunday best.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, it's true. I know. Okay. American import? It's actually old, isn't it? It is actually All Hallows Eve,
Yes.
which everyone forgets, right? Which is Walpurgis Nicht.
But a lot of the Australian settlers came from Europe and England, and they didn't do it.
Well, because they didn't have the costumes.
That's true. You're right.
All the lollies, the sweets.
true.
Yeah. I mean, there's no point doing it if you're not going to get a barrel full of sweets.
Have you ever had lollies at your house to give kids when they come back?
But I actually prefer the trick.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Which are usually pretty lame.
Oh, nothing like a bucket of water over the little kids.
All right.
To dampen their enthusiasm.
Well, I'd like them to do something at the level of a Randy, the Amazing Randy or something, and do some escape trick.
Yeah, right. No, I just want to pour water over the kids. Get a bucket. Hi, kids. Blush. Trick. Trick. Yeah,
Well, you'd save a lot on chocolates for that. So you're in the American import camp.
Yeah, I think so. I think I am, actually, yeah. I mean, I'm not imported from America, but you mean I believe that Halloween is an American import? Is right. I'm trying to get the semantics correct here.
Okay.
Right, yes.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely believe Yanks are coming.
Do you think the hoo-ha we have here in Australia about Halloween currently is just a bit of American imperialism coming over here? Or do you think, what was it like when you were a kid with Halloween?
Like you were?
Well, I mean, it didn't exist, to be honest. I mean, it occurred on happy days and that was it. That was the only reference to Halloween, and that was my understanding, that essentially it's some American BS that thankfully is not part of the Australian culture.
That's right, where Big Al would have a carved pumpkin on there.
Yeah, and maybe in your Peanuts cartoon. Yeah,
Yes.
the big and that was about my only reference points to that. But
So when do you reckon it started coming over here?
I don't know. Maybe it's indirect. I think people are getting into dress up. So I have a friend who's really into it, and I have difficulty hiding my disgust and distaste about it. But they seem to enjoy it. The whole family gets out and walks around.
Well, if you had to go with something for Halloween, what would it be?
Oh, that's tricky. Well, I mean, if you went as Uri Geller, would people get it?
You'd have to sort of walk around with a bent spoon, but then they could just think you're Richard Saunders.
Yeah, well, maybe it goes Richard Saunders. That could be the same thing. But I don't know. In terms of what could you go with, because you'd have to be something skeptic related. You have to have something people would question. Maybe as a skeptic, it would need to be educational. So maybe I think I'd go with divining rods, and then people could sort of. But I'm divining small chocolates.
That's true. And look, you could go as Eric von Daniken, but he's not that iconic visually.
No. And to be honest, I went and saw this. We're going completely off target here. You can edit this one out.
Oh, he will.
I went and saw Eric von Daniken with my parents, and we didn't go to movies at all. So it was the big thing at Chariots of Gods. But for some reason, they put before it a short, which was Spike Milligan, and it had my favourite joke, where I think he's doing a takeoff of Sherlock Holmes or something. He's a detective, and he's looking through, and having this scene, and this rock comes through a window, and they go, aha, it's a clue. There's a note attached to the rock. What does it say? It says, Jim's Windows Repairs, which for me is still the best Spike Milligan joke of all time. But speaking about Halloween, I think my answer is, why? We need our own culture. We need to be transferring culture to America. Why can't they be dressing up as kangaroos and koalas and walking around, preferably punching people in the face like good kangaroos do?
They learnt their lesson with Yahoo Serious.
Oh, God,
Yeah.
you're right. Okay, actually, you're right.
Reckless Kelly.
Yes. No, maybe in that regard, I should probably be quiet about it.
I think you should, but we've got your point. Thank you very much. Look, as growing up in the UK, was Halloween as big a thing as it seems to have gotten here and around the world since?
I don't think so. Not that I can remember, no. I think we saw it on TV a lot in America, but I don't remember any of that. I think trick-or-treating was a thing, but very, very minor. I don't remember doing it.
And has it gotten big over there too as well?
I think so.
I just imagine everyone just likes dressing up. If you had to dress up for Halloween for something, what do you reckon it'd be? Anything? Or you just nah, I'm not going to go.
No, I used to do cosplay before it was called cosplay.
Right.
So I've done some vampires in my time. I did at one point dress up as Lara Croft. Absolutely loved that one. That's all that's springing to mind at the moment.
Well they're both pretty good. I got to say that then. Okay, well, so you would say it is a bit imported, it is a bit overblown, it's a bit of a hallmark thing.
No, I'll say it's imported, but I haven't said it's overblown. I think it's fun. Why not? Why not?
That's true. Fair enough. Any excuse to dress up.
Yeah, and Richard introduced me to candy corn, which I'd seen in the movies, but I'd never tried. Really like it.
Oh, is it different flavours of that?
It just tastes like a little bit of sugar.
Right. It's about the size. It is like a fake bit of corn, isn't it?
Yeah, looks like that.
Wow,
but very
okay.
tasty, very tasty.
And you make necklaces of it too, don't you? You can put string through it, make a necklace of it.
I haven't seen that, but that's a very good idea.
What would you dress up for Halloween if you were dressing up as something?
Not necessarily on Halloween, but I do enjoy dressing up parties. And
who doesn't?
Actually, the most recent time I had the opportunity to dress up, I happened to have wanted to do a slightly more toned down version of it, but I personally also love rats, so the way I actually dress up with I wore a plastic rat on one shoulder and a plastic rat skeleton on the other, as a kind of understated way. I wore that to an event, and somehow I think I actually got as much attention as the people who wore full costumes, so that
good.
Worked out.
You got it down. Thank you. That's good. So the big question I've been putting to everybody tonight is the whole Americanization of Halloween, is that what's happened to us here in Australia?
Well, yes, in a way. Being a lawyer, I'll be a bit picky about that though, because Halloween is obviously not American per se. Halloween is an old supernatural tradition, and comes from Europe.
Yeah, but no one dressed up as Cher for that, really.
No, so this is where I get picky. It's not Halloween that's American, and it's not Halloween that's been imported from America. It's the tradition of trick-or-treating. And I had a quick look at that today, very cursory look on Wikipedia, so I could be wrong, but I saw that trick-or-treating had been invented in the 1920s. So it's not a very old tradition at all. It's kind of like one of those American inventions like Mother's Day.
Was it invented by a chocolate company?
I can't remember the name of the guy who invented it, but it was some form of marketing strategy.
Right.
Yes.
A little bit like Secretary's Day, that was one.
Exactly.
Yeah, whatever happened to that?
Whatever happened to that?
Yeah, I mean, there are still secretaries, male and female, but it's not something you celebrate. Even only a couple of years ago, they were still celebrating it.
No, and I think you have to be nicer to your secretary these days on every single day, not just Secretary's Day, because otherwise, they go to HR.
Yes. Look, and there's a message in that for all of us, and I think if you want to see a spooky episode of anything, I reckon you should watch a very spooky episode of Man About the House. Very scary.
I'm Mick West. In my podcast, Tales from the Rabbit Hole, I have extended conversations with people who have been involved in conspiracy culture. I do this for a couple of reasons. Firstly, because it's really interesting. These people have great stories about how they fell down the conspiracy theory rabbit hole, what they did down there, and what it was that helped them out. Sometimes I also talk to people who investigate conspiracy theories, and they have equally fascinating stories from the other side. Secondly, I want to understand how best to prevent the spread of conspiracy theories and misinformation, which is an increasing problem in a time when alternative media is exploding. The best way to do this is to communicate effectively with the people involved, and the best way to do that is with a nice long chat. So check it out, Tales from the Rabbit Hole, tftrh.com.
Now it's time once again to go back to those archives at Trove, at trove.nla.gov.au, the online resource from the Australian Government and the National Library of Australia. It is, looking up the thesaurus, a big, considerable, enormous, extreme, high, huge, immense, strong, tremendous, vast, fat, husky, mammoth, abundant, ample, big league, bulky, colossal, excessive, extended, extravagant, gigantic, humongous, jumbo, large, lengthy, long, major league, numerous, oversized, and titanic, towering resource for us all. I think you can tell I'm a big fan of the Trove Archives. That's where we head, of course, to look up the thoughts and opinions, the newspapers from decades, centuries past. And of course, we normally look up the items of interest to skeptics, be they paranormal, or in this case, today, we're going to look for references to natural healing. It's a term you'll often hear used to this very day, natural healing. It sounds so natural. Now let's go back almost 100 years. 1924 on the 10th of October, and we're looking in the pages of the Blue Mountain Echo. The Blue Mountains are just west of Sydney. The natural powers of healing by nature's own physician. In certain parts of Ireland and of Scotland, there's a tradition, a belief, call it what you will, the origin of which is buried in the misty past, that the seventh son of the seventh sun has the gift of healing in his hands. At least one example of the truth of this tradition is to be found in Australia. Mr. James Lyons, the natural gift healer, who was born in Toowoomba, Queensland, is the seventh son of a seventh son. His wonderful power of banishing pain merely by the touch of his hand to the affected part he ascribes to prenatal influence, as his mother firmly believed that if her seventh child was a son, he would have that gift. Be that as it may, Mr. Lyons has for the last 10 years effected enough cures in Sydney and in different parts of New South Wales to put all doubts at rest as to the genuineness of his claim. He doesn't profess to be a cure-all. There are certain ailments that even the magic touch of his hands defy. But such troubles as neuritis, rheumatism, rheumatoid, and I'm not sure what that is, arthritis, catarrh, indigestion, liver troubles, and kindred ailments are speedily and permanently cured by him. As soon as he sees patients, he is invariably able to say whether or not he can cure them. What a remarkable man. Mr. Lyons is most emphatic on the point that he does not cure by faith, by hypnotism, by mental suggestion, by spiritualism, or by mesmerism. He simply has the inborn gift of healing as others have of music or art or literature or of other gifts. Neither does he use drugs, lotions, or batteries. The writer, who has sampled his treatment, is of the opinion that Mr. Lyons, who is a powerfully built man, weighing much more than he appears to do, is a human battery, and that his cures are effected by human electricity. When I told him, he merely smiled and asked me, "What is electricity?" But the strangest fact about him is that his treatments apparently take nothing out of him, for after treating patients all day, he is as fresh and untired at the end of the day as he was in the morning. Once, when he cured a medical man of a sore throat, the doctor dubbed him, quote, "the man with anaesthetic touch," end quote. One medico was so impressed with the manner he... And we run into the old problem in the next sentence where the text is a little bit blurry and hard to read. I think it says, one medico was so impressed with the manner of his instant, I think it says, with the manner of his instant relieves, neurologic and similar pains. I think that's what the words say, they're a little bit unclear. That he invited him to go to London and work in conjunction with him, but he is too much attached to his native country to leave it. Mr. Lyons is simple and unassuming of manner. As he treats his patient, he talks on the topics of the day or any other subject they may mention, so that they can be quite sure suggestion plays no part in the cure he effects. He tells you quite frankly that he has been even more surprised than his patients when he has performed some wonderful cure. As a matter of fact, he doesn't seem to fully realize his own power. He tells you, however, that he derives the greatest pleasure from healing, and that his life is a particularly full and happy one. His treatments usually occupy 3 weeks, and in that time he has cured chronic invalids who have baffled medical skill for years. He has a son, too, only 10 years of age, who has a similar healing power to himself in his hands. When only 16 years of age, Mr. Lyons discovered that he had the power of healing. His sister was suffering from headache, and out of sympathy he rubbed her forehead when she suddenly exclaimed, "My headache is gone." From then on, he practiced healing, but was initially shy of his gift and did not like to hear it discussed. When he first came to New South Wales, he was stationed at Mittagong in the employ of a city firm, but was so reserved that he did not mention his natural gift of healing except to his most intimate friends, and for some years could not be induced to demonstrate it. He then employed his leisure time in effecting cures, some of which had not responded to medical treatment. Many of his grateful patients then suggested that he devote all his time to the cure of the afflicted, but not until he had treated 187 patients and watched the results for 12 months he could be persuaded to do so. Now, as always, there are doubting Thomases who won't believe unless they see. But a thorough investigation of the cases cured by Mr. Lyons gave the satisfying results that 90% of the patients he had treated were completely cured, and 99% had benefited considerably. He had been particularly successful in curing infants and young children. Among the many letters of appreciation he has received from grateful parents is one from a mother who declares that he saved her baby who had gastritis and wasting disease and is now a big, bonny boy, 15 months old. Another boy of 9 years who had been deaf practically from birth and suffered intensely from earache has now completely recovered. Since 1914, Mr. Lyons has been practicing on and off in Sydney, so there has been plenty of time to prove that his cures are permanent. Though he is unable to say how he affects the cures, he has won recognition on sheer merit and against much opposition. His success is merely a repetition of the eternal law that if a man has anything good to offer, it must eventually receive recognition, and the gift of healing transcends all other gifts, for it contributes to the health, therefore to the happiness of the nation. Mr. Lyons has been invited to visit Katoomba at the end of the month. Further particulars will appear in this paper next week. I wonder what happened to Mr. James Lyons. Let me see, this is from 1924. And indeed, just looking quickly into the Trove archives as I sit here, we have other references to Mr. James Lyons over the years. Notably, what's this one? This is 1929. The naturally gifted healer, it says, and there's an article there. Mr. James Lyons, who has been causing widespread attention in New South Wales during the past 14 years for the wonderful cures he has been effecting, will begin a 15 days course of his unique treatment at the above address about the middle of the day. And subheadlines include interviews, no charge, no fees in advance, success. His fees of limited number, and so on. It's like an announcement of an appearance. And then we come to 1935, the Singleton Argus on the 16th of August. The death of Mr. James Lyons. Mr. James Lyons, the well-known healer who regularly visited Singleton some years ago in connection with his profession, died on Monday evening at St. Vincent's Private Hospital, Sydney, from pneumonia supervening an attack of influenza. The deceased, who was 58 years of age, that's young, had been practicing in Sydney of late years and made periodical visits to Newcastle and other centres. He took a keen interest in his profession, and patients could not speak too highly of him. Deceased is survived by a widow and 6 children. The funeral took place on Tuesday, when the remains were interred at the Botany Cemetery. I wonder. I bet I could go to that cemetery and possibly find his grave. Although I know what you're all thinking. This wonderful healer, miraculous healer, couldn't heal himself at the young age of 58. Now, what do we find in the pages of the Daily Mercury from Mackay in Queensland, dated the 21st of February 1945. Natural healing. More than 100 Sydney physiotherapists the other night toasted, with grape juice, unfermented, the establishment of Australia's and possibly the world's first free natural health clinic. Included in their ranks were osteopaths, chiropractors, dietitians, homeopaths, hydrotherapists, electrotherapists, spiritual healers, herbalists, and students of the science of colour healing. They were members of the Australian Physiotherapy Association for a special health dinner and an evening of song, music and entertainment. They paid 10 and 6 a head. The menu, except for the roast turkey, specially provided for visitors, was mainly vegetarian. Dr. B. Bilton, a trustee of the new clinic, said that the physiotherapists believed in the curing of diseases by natural treatment without drugs. And finally, in the pages of the Riverina Herald, from Victoria, dated the 24th of January in the year 2000, coming forward quite a few years. Healer's Course. A new course has been created to address the ethical and moral responsibilities of people coming into healing in society today. The purpose of the course is for students to achieve a recognised standard of achievement with a certificate of registration enabling them to practice and to apply for insurance coverage under the umbrella of the National Federation of Healers. The National Federation of Healers. The next program will begin on February 20. Students are required to attend seminars on the third Sunday of the month from 10 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. The basic program provided by the NFH is supported by a series of presentations encompassing a wide variety of techniques and modalities associated with spiritual healing, metaphysics, and natural healing. These include massage, kinesiology, and I'll break in there to say I bet that means, in that case it means applied kinesiology, the quackery, meditation, ear candling, aromatherapy, counselling, muscle testing, again that's applied kinesiology, dowsing, crystal/gemstones, channeling, chiropractic, homeopathic, pulsing, touch for health, and anatomy. Reading the required textbooks and a wide variety of related texts will be expected throughout the year. Prior to graduation, students' evaluation will include the requirement of 4 testimonials from people who have benefited from receiving healing from them. For further information on the course, outline and costs, contact Carol A. Weston on 5484-1514. Well, there you go. More natural healers than you can poke a dowsing rod at in the pages of Australian newspapers going back, almost a century. And you too can poke your dowsing rod and find healers or something else when you visit Trove at trove.nla.gov.au. Type in your search criteria. I wonder what you will search for. I wonder what I'll search for next week. Because when we all do that together, we never know what we might find. Thank you for listening to the Skeptic Zone podcast this week. Next week, the show will be coming to you from Bend in Oregon, where I'll be spending a few days visiting my very good friend, Brian Dunning. Now, Brian and I certainly love to send each other up from time to time. We really razz each other. But I think that's a sign of respect, at least on my part, because I know he doesn't respect me at all. Oh, well. But speaking about Brian Dunning, at SciCon in Las Vegas, he screened his movie, the UFO movie They Don't Want You to See, to a packed room. And it was great. The audience loved it. And a big applause at the end. And a very lengthy Q&A with Brian followed, which was a sign that people really were very interested. And I noticed that over at Psychology Today, the website Psychology Today, there's a review of the movie. And it is glowing, to say the least. The UFO movie They Don't Want You to See, documentary review. It's a masterclass in critical thinking. High praise indeed. To find out more about the movie, just visit theufo.movie. And of course, coming up on next week's show, we have more from SciCon, including an interview with Susan Gerbeck, who will also be speaking at Skepticon in Melbourne. I think we've got more of the Book of Tim with Tim Mendham, and the Trove segment will be looking at psychic twins. Thank you to all those psychic twins, triplets, and so on, who send in money to support the Skeptic Zone each week at PayPal or Patreon, and you can do that by following the links at skepticzone.tv. But for this week, this is Richard Saunders signing off from Oakland, California.
You've been listening to the Skeptic Zone podcast. Please visit our website at www.skepticzone.tv for episodes and show notes with links going back to 2008. You can follow the Skeptic Zone on Facebook, X, TikTok and YouTube by clicking the links at our homepage, together with links to support the show financially via Patreon or PayPal. The Skeptic Zone is an independent production. The views and opinions expressed by our guests are not necessarily those of the Skeptic Zone podcast or any other skeptical organisation.
Okay, ready?
So yeah, my dad has
Let's do a take.
Okay.
We've come back to Las Vegas. We've all gone home, but we're back only to do the dice game. I'm in a speakeasy with Brian Dunning. Hello, Brian.
From Skeptoid.com.
He had to say it. And a group of wonderful friends, including Adrienne Hill from... We're here to play the dice game, aren't we, Adrienne?
Yes, we are.
And where are you from?
I am from the Skeptic Zone.
Thank goodness for that. We have...
I'm not psychic, Richard. Not yet, anyway.
Apparently. We have a D20 this week, folks, a D20, so you at home can play along. We've got a table full of skeptics. What number, skeptics, what number will the dice reveal? Brian.
The die, you mean?
The die.
Hey, Brian.
6.
17.
13.
Okay, my D20 predicts your D20 will be 10.
20.
Also 13.
5.
For Susan Gerbeck.
Yep.
It's 6. I win.
Oh, I was close.
19.
19.
Wow.
19.
No, 19.
That's what I was gonna say.
All right, that was roll number 1. Now roll number 2.
Russian.
Brian.
Yes.
What number?
11.
I'm sensing a 14.
13.
My D20 says 16.
And I like 13 as well. It's a great number.
11.
I said 11.
4. Okay.
That's
It's
a
11
1.
again.
No,
A 1.
Yeah, that's a 1.
That's a 1.
How's that a 1?
It's a 1.
That's two ones. It's 11.
It's a special symbol.
All right. We're not doing so well. Last roll. Here we go, Brian.
1.
3.
I'm not a gambler. 13.
My D20 says 12.
12.
14.
19.
I'll say 10. 12.
But there's a 1 on it.
Where are you from again?
Skeptoid.com.